our African school systems, strict discipline has been often seen as necessary for order and performance. But when does strictness become bullying? We're taking a closer look at teacher on learner bullying, what it looks like inside classroom and how it affects young people. How does it show up as a repeated humiliation, dismissive language, singling out learners in ways that damage their confidence? Kagiso Kgosiemang is an education consultant who joins us from Botswana. Kagiso, welcome on the show.
Thank you so much, Benjamin.
It's a
How
pleasure.
are you this morning?
We are very, very good. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Kagiso, let's talk a little bit about strictness and discipline. We're having a conundrum in South Africa because corporal punishment is banned here in many schools, in all schools. In fact, it's not allowed. So there is that kind of difficulty in how to discipline students in many schools. But, this thing shows itself in different ways in many African countries. Discipline, how should it actually look like in schools? I'd like us to start there before we get into this conversation.
When we talk about discipline, we should not confuse it with punishment, because when you talk about corporal punishment, you're talking about punishing. Mm-hmm. But discipline means to guide, and you should guide, not wound. When you talk about corporal punishment, it means now you're causing harm. Mm-hmm. This is what I always tell teachers. There is no one, including adults, who can learn when they have been infringed with pain. Once you feel pain, you cannot, because now you are instilling fear. But when we talk about discipline, you are correcting the behavior. It teaches boundaries. And also at the same time, it should maintain the child's dignity.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? A child's dignity is something that many adults don't actually see as something that is important, especially because, children are naughty in school, parents don't see what the kids are up to, and children, maybe they bunk classes, they're making noise while the teacher is speaking, etc. And that is seen as behavior that warrants a certain kind of discipline that could be bordering on bullying. Well, the kids are standing up for themselves these days. There's a TikTok trend where kids are posting the bullies, the teachers and the principals who were once their bullies. What do you make of this particular trend? Kids calling out bullying in the schooling system?
Surprisingly, yesterday I was traveling. I met my former teacher. He taught me so many years ago. And he was such a strict teacher that we could not even express ourselves in class. So I asked him, the first question that I asked him was, do you still remember me? He said, no. And then I said, are you still strict as you were around 1995? He laughed and said, no. Because, honestly, I think that doing that, trying to heal, and the society might view it inappropriate. But I also saw the trend. I think even here in Botswana, I have seen a couple of learners saying, you know what, when I went to a certain school, teacher so and so made my stay at that school so miserable. We understand that learners can be mischievous, but they need to be guided. The moment you see them going out to social media and calling out teachers' names, it shows that they still have that pain. They're trying to find a way of healing. Because honestly, this does exist, the way we see teachers using their power to mistreat and humiliate learners. So that is where the problem is. Teachers using their authority, and learners have no way to report. Because when you go to schools and they have been mistreated by teachers, so they cannot discuss that with other teachers. Even at universities, surprisingly, bullying is in any institution, including universities. I remember whereby you want to express it to another lecturer, they will tell you that they cannot discuss their colleagues with students. So I think the only platform they have now is social media to say, you know what, I need to heal. And this is where I can talk about without being judged, without any prejudice.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to speak about corporal punishment because it feels like it looks differently to teacher to learner bullying, right? Because the bullying doesn't mean that you hit the child. It's probably verbal abuse at times. At times, maybe it has to do with the marking system that a teacher could utilize to prejudice some of the students, or maybe students they don't like. At times, it's, just some of the things said and the treatments within the classroom setting. From your perspective, how would you describe teacher-on-learner bullying?
Well, like you have said, teacher-on-learner bullying starts with misuse of power to humiliate learners. That could be verbal bullying, whereby the teacher wants to give feedback. And, the sad part about it is, like I just said, it happens even in preschools, how learners are given feedback. Probably the child has not well developed, or they're struggling in any part of learning, and then the way feedback will be given to them will be through humiliation, sarcasm as well, and then discriminatory behaviors also. We see them looking at their backgrounds, and then also there is bullying when it comes to physical appearance of learners. So teachers should try to do it in such a way that, like I had already said, maintain the dignity of a learner. Call them, tell them, correct them, and also make it a point that you do not steal their moment, because if they are bullied in classrooms, they'll be scared to express themselves. It also makes them withdraw from learning. And I'm one person who always advocates for long life learning. We see people not wanting to learn. Right now, we even see adults refusing to go back to school to upgrade because they know the environment was not really conducive because of bullying.
All right, we're going to take a break, Kagiso. You're giving us some interesting insights. There's so many other questions that we have for you. But remember, you can also WhatsApp us your questions right here on The Move if you have questions for our guest today. But what's your take on this one? Because, yes, we know kind of how normal bullying looks like in the in the streets when you're being bullied by an older mate, right? But it looks different in the classroom because you don't know where the line is drawn when it comes to a teacher's authority. In fact, when we were growing up, a teacher could say whatever they wanted to in the classroom. You couldn't really dispute it as a student because it felt like you were their subordinate, right? Has times changed? Students seem to be raising their concerns on TikTok, on social media platforms. Give us your say on our WhatsApp number, +27 832 886684.
Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter?
Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard?
Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126.
And we will call you back.
So you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So that's who I am,
It's not just talk, it's your chance to air your views.
Share your opinion.
Engage with a community that values your perspective.
Follow us on our social media.
Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za
and get ready to share your views
on Channel Africa,
the African perspective.
9 to 12 midday, Central African Time.
On the Move with Palisa Tau and Benjamin Mushatama.
There's another trend that I saw on TikTok where adults are saying, now that it's my time to be an adult, I'm going to do some of the things that, adults used to do. So if I say, now that it's my time to be an adult, and I show a video of like the remote next to me and me calling my son to come and give me the remote, which is right next to me. And there's a teacher now who did that trend and said, now that it's my turn to be a teacher, and a kid gives them a book with it, uncovered. And all of us were expecting her to throw it across the room like our teachers would do for us.
Yeah.
And instead, she took the book and she covered it there on the desk and then gave it back to the child. And in the comments, we're like, that's so disappointing because our teachers used to just fling your book across the room, and whether it tore on the way, it was quite intense. And I don't know if that was bullying, because I'm sure it was pretty unnecessary for our teachers to show power like that. And we're speaking about that line between discipline and bullying from teachers to students. Still joining us on this conversation is educational consultant Kagiso Kgosiemang. Kagiso, was this behavior necessary, and have things changed enough for us to be able to see that difference between what is discipline and what is bullying on the teacher's behalf?
Because I've been a teacher before, and I taught in both public schools and private schools. This behavior is common in public schools. I think because in most cases, teachers in public schools are not well trained. The school would just employ the teacher, and there's no orientation. You just have to go straight to classroom from university. And what's in your back of your mind is you copy the behavior that was done by your teacher back then. That behavior is unnecessary, and that is actually the book that is thrown is normally for a child who has some challenges. You would never see a book for a learner who is doing very well being thrown on air.
Yeah.
And that is to embarrass the learner. And this also comes with labeling learners. Some are called slow learners. Recently, because I do literacy assessment, I have been receiving calls from different schools. And, from the management, they will call and say, we have learners with learning disabilities, labeling them with different names. And my question was, have they seen educational psychologists? They would say no. And already it means that the school is not using the right screening to screen these learners, and they are labeled. And these are the same learners who will be embarrassed, and feedback will be given. I've heard my son the other time telling me that he knows that learners with special needs who are really struggling with reading and writing. And I know very well that he knows because the feedback was given right in class in front of other learners. So I think going forward, also teacher training institutions should try by all means to include professionalism in their modules so that they train them. By the time they go to schools to start teaching, they will really know the boundaries. Because I think if somebody throws my book, I won't be happy. The teacher also won't be happy if the learner can submit by throwing the book back to them. They won't like it. So the same way we treat them, because they're human beings, I always emphasize that learners are small people. They are human beings at the same time, but we should never forget that they have feelings like us. And by the time you throw the book, they would be spoiled. We cannot expect them to learn when they have been embarrassed.
What supportive and accountable school environments should we be creating today in modern life? Because there is that historic and systematic factor that bleeds from our history as African countries when we look at the culture of discipline in classrooms.
Schools should set fair policies, and teachers should also be accountable. Like I have already said, there's this problem where teachers are not accountable. And because when the management looks at the teacher as a colleague who cannot be called out because of a learner. So teachers need to be accountable. The other thing that we need to emphasize on is policies. We should make sure that we have discipline policies that are clear so that teachers would know boundaries and where to stop, and they should also know the difference between discipline and bullying. And we should also make sure that we create a system whereby learners are able to go and report. They can express themselves. They can raise their concerns and say, please, can we not be treated in this manner? Can we be treated with dignity? Because like I had said, teachers are doing this because this has been happening for a very long time. They copied this, they saw it happening a long time ago. And by the time you leave a teacher training institution, you say, you know what, I'm going to show these learners my true colors. They would have to know me that I'm a no-nonsense teacher and no.
In every system, there should be a method of accountability. I mean, I am proud of the learners today for, speaking their minds on social media, but that platform doesn't really foster accountability in the system. Where do, the learners go when they feel like, a particular teacher is bullying them, is singling them out, and that is disturbing their ways of learning?
Unfortunately, learners would try and go to the disciplinary committee or head of departments, and they won't even know how the matter was addressed because they won't be there when the teacher has to account. So they'll just report and then they'll be reassured that the teacher would be called and to be heard. From there, they would never get any feedback. That is where the problem is. They don't heal. They don't even know whether there was fairness or not. And in most cases, you find that the child will be blamed, that the teacher ended up doing that because the child was misbehaving. It always goes back.
And what do parents do? What can parents do if their child comes home and says, hey, this teacher has been bullying me for quite some time? Is it still the same system that sounds so far like there isn't much justice in that particular regard?
Yeah, parents should also be heard because they are also stakeholders when it comes to education. But like I said, it depends. It differs from one school to the other. I'm not really sure about public schools, but what I know about private schools is that parents are always heard. They are given a platform to sit down with that teacher so that they can iron out all those issues. But in public schools, the funny part about it is that I think there is little accountability because they just see each other as colleagues and then forget about learners a little bit. But parents should be heard also. The first person that has to be heard is the learner. And then if the learner feels right decisions were not made upon the case, that's when parents can be involved, because the class teacher is there for a reason. There's one person who should also be aware if there is any bullying and should also help learners, because they all need conducive environment for learning. If there is bullying, honestly, they will not achieve the objectives of going to school.
All right, we're going to leave it there, Kagiso. You're getting a lot of love from our YouTube page. Someone is saying that you are a doctor in the making. I don't know if you're working on your doctorate. Are people revealing your secrets there on our social media?
My doctorate.
Okay, good luck with your doctorate, and thank you to the listener who is exposing your secrets there. Kagiso, where can people find you if they want to get hold of you on social media? Do you have platforms that you're available on?
Yeah, I'm on TikTok. I'm active on TikTok as Navigating Early Childhood. And then I'm also on Facebook. I have because I'm also an entrepreneur.
Okay.
So I have a business called Jouer Hall. Jouer is French for play hall.
Okay.
It's on Facebook. Yeah,
fantastic. And your personal handle, what is it?
Kagiso Kgosiemang.
All right. Thank you so much. That's Kagiso Kgosiemang, who is an educational consultant, joining us all the way from Botswana. Thank you so much, Kagiso, for that conversation. What do you think of that? Hit us up on our socials, on our live streaming comment sections, but also on our WhatsApp. Let's get our sports right now.